Okay. So, welcome. This is the final lecture. You've all made it. Well, not all of you, but looks like enough of you. As I said, I know who's getting A's for the class. Now, as promised, or hopefully I'll follow through on my promise, I put together something that I hope you guys will find interesting, especially if you are graduating or getting your CS degree and going off to the real world. Things I wish somebody would have told me 10 years ago when I was graduating. So this is our final lecture, so hopefully it's going to be kind of a summary of the entire class, though I'm not going to show you any code today. So again, congratulations, you're all officially Android developers. Unless you fail the class, and then you can take it again next year. We do have iOS in the fall if you want to take that. None of you are failing that I know of. So, all right, so where do we go from here? Where do we go after this class? You've created your final project. Hopefully you're going to submit it to the App Store. Well, you really need to continue your education. You need to continue being an Android developer. And here's some great resources that, if I don't say so myself, it's electronicarmory.com. This is where I'm going to post everything going forward. When my iOS class comes in the fall, then I'll be posting those lectures as well, doing tutorials like this, hopefully more. And then I might have a 3D/game development class this summer that you guys may or may not sign up for. But if you don't, you can always watch it online. But I'm biased, that's why I recommend this site. But also lynda.com, as I keep mentioning throughout this semester. It's free, just hopefully you have a Boise library card, but other libraries do have this service as well. So do check that out. Everybody that I've gotten onto it says this is great, I love this thing. So if you don't have access to that or you want additional stuff, YouTube, go to your local library. They have what are called books. You guys know what those are? They are free. You can check them out, bring them home. They actually let you keep them for a good while, like 3 weeks, 4 weeks sometimes. It doesn't have to be code books. Code books tend to be outdated like a month or two after they're published, right? Like, .NET comes out with a new version every time. Java comes out with a new version every time. If you get an Android book, God help you, it's good. It's good for about a week. But do check it out for other resources. I usually try to get out there about once every month or so when my old library books are due. I try to go get some more. So, continued education. I've been doing this ever since I graduated from college, and I'll tell you the truth, I've honestly learned more out of college than I did in. But college did teach me how to learn in the first place. So without college, I fear that I would have not had that interest in learning further. I met a lot of really great professors that just showed me a lot of really cool things, met a lot of really cool people that went on to do great things, and kind of an inspiration to me to be like, I want to do what that guy does. And I went to school with him, so why can't I do those kind of things? So build, build, build. So I need you guys to continue building apps. Tiny apps. You don't have to build entire, games or Facebook equivalents or that sort of thing. I was talking the other day about an app idea that I had that all it did was simply calculate distance via two means. You could put 2 pins on a map and it would just calculate the distance, or you can set your current location, walk, tell it how, it would have a little screen that would show you how far you were walking, and then so let's say you wanted to walk 100 meters, you would walk 100 meters and a little display would say how far you currently are from where you set the pin originally. And that's it. Just because I have that use sometimes, I want to know how far this is. The one person that did the Frisbee golf game or app, that would be a great little feature to their app. And so build all these little tiny ideas. It doesn't have to be a full-fledged application. One of the last ones I did for myself was a little server ping application. That's all it does. You type in a URL, or you type in actually a domain name, or you type in an IP address, you hit ping, it gives you the packet latency, a couple other stats, and that's it. And you build up all these little tiny apps, and then what you can eventually do is maybe combine them together into a bigger app idea. So if you have a lot of these little like server type apps, combine them all into like a server admin app. And so you get a couple of those under your belt, and then build a larger application. Now that you know basically how to build every single piece, and that's kind of where I started out. Where my first app was just a database of drink recipe apps, and that was really a lot that I took on initially. But we did that app, we did another app, and then eventually, anytime a client would say, "Hey, can we do this app?" Say, "Yep, I have this example that I've done, and this example over here." And while I've never done an app exactly like you're talking about, I've done several apps that have those capabilities, and reusing those code to then compile this app for this client. So just build, little bits at a time. So here's an example of me taking on a new skill for 3D. So this is something I built in a day. This is just a project I'm doing that for 30 days I am going to build a model every day. So this is one of them, just a little low poly model, just like the design. Don't spend too much time on it. This is, does anybody know who this one belongs to? No. Well, yes, Anakin, but Darth Vader. Wow. So yes, but no. Darth Vader killed Anakin, right? That's what Obi-Wan said. So this is just a quick model I did for one of the days. And these things don't have to be perfect. I spent a lot of time on those previous two. This one, I didn't have a lot of time, but I was like, you know what, I'm just going to throw this together. Does anybody know what this belongs to? Yes, all right. So, I go with a little Star Wars theme. I've been on a kick recently watching the new movies. We bought the Force Awakens when it came out digitally, and then I was like, oh, I got to watch all the previous movies, so caught up on those.
We're showing it somewhere on campus.
Oh.
Either right now or soon.
Okay. Well, I got it on iTunes. I can watch it wherever I want. But, yeah, so I've been on this little Star Wars kick recently, but, why not? It's awesome. So, yeah, I made this very quickly. It's not the best thing. It's just, I threw it together. I learned a lot. But, yeah, so doing little pieces like this a day. So maybe do an app a day, or just, throw some data in a list view, or throw a map on the screen with some parsed JSON that you find on the internet, and just do very small things. It doesn't even have to be complete. Like, I'm just going to throw this model away, or maybe I get inspired later and I want to finish this by texturing it and everything like that. But the idea is to continuously do what you're trying to learn and trying to achieve. And what I'm trying to achieve is become a better 3D modeler. So another thing that you guys should do is write everything down. I have a notebook that I actually have here with the greatest school in the world on it, by the way. And this is just a place that I keep notes, and this is an old one that I had. And so sketches and ideas and everything I put in there. Actually, I put my bills that I have to pay in there as well. I have a little tiny one as well that I can stick in my back pocket. And if you guys are not the paper and pencil type of person, use Evernote. Evernote's awesome. Here's a couple in the far right-hand corner there, a couple notes that I have in there. One is just ideas that I want to put together. Another one, the top right one in those lists, is I just titled it Space, but I saw this really cool term that I don't know where I'll use it again, but the term is quantum vacuum virtual plasma. And what the heck is that? Quantum vacuum virtual plasma. I can't even say it. I don't know. This is the thing that's going to drive our next spaceship engines. It's kind of like the ion drive. There's this phenomenon that's created at the quantum level that basically creates energy from nothing, sort of. I can't even explain it, but I was like, that is such a cool term. I'm going to write that down.
What is the term again?
Oh, you're going to make me say it again? The term is quantum vacuum virtual plasma. And yeah, look it up. It's a new engine that somebody discovered that NASA's testing out. It was in an article that I was reading, and it's essentially supercharging plasma and at the quantum level, randomly, it generates thrust. And it doesn't use any fuel, it just uses energy. And so you can charge it via the sun and then use that energy to plasma. So I don't know. I'm not going to even try to explain it any further, but it is cool. Look it up. But I wrote it down. And, if I'm making a sci-fi game or, I just want to blow somebody's mind, be like, check out this term. I can't remember what it is, but I wrote it down somewhere here, and Evernote's searchable. And I have another one in there, MongoDB Startup. So I always forget how to start my Mongo database, because not only do you run MongoD, but you have to point it to the config file, and I don't know where that is, so I just wrote that down. You can also store images. It's just a 3D model. I'm sorry the images are small, but I'm not really concentrating on those. The idea is write it down, put it somewhere. And what's really cool about that is then you can go back years later and be like, oh, I was such a moron when I wrote that down, or, oh yeah, like I really did learn what quantum vacuum virtual plasma was, and now I'm doing a PhD on it or something. But back on March 2nd, 2016, I wrote this down. I don't know what the date is, but yeah. So it's like it's a really cool thing to go back. I have a lot of sketches that I did for my early mobile apps that I look back on and be like, wow, this pencil on paper drawing turned into this multi-$1,000 project that I worked on. It's pretty cool. So that's my suggestion to you is write down everything. Write down ideas, things that you want to achieve, list of goals specifically. So, and when you write down these goals, you need to be specific. Not, I want to learn a foreign language, or I want to be rich. I want to travel Europe. These goals need to be specific, and I'll give you some examples in a second here. They also need to be obtainable. So a lot of people are like, oh yeah, shoot for the stars, and it's like, well, yeah, but if goals are too unattainable, you won't have motivation. You'll be like, okay, I want to be an astronaut, right? You're 6 years old, so I want to be an astronaut. But then you look at all the training that you need to do, all the things you need to know, all the whatever, the limited number of astronauts that actually get to go up. And you're like, well, that's too hard. I'm not going to do that. But if you break it up into smaller goals and say, okay, at the age of 6, I'm going to really study physics. I'm going to really study this. I'm going to go into the Air Force or get my pilot's license. I'm going to, and you take it stepwise and say, okay, well, I did well in school. I got my physics degree. I got my pilot's license, or I joined the Air Force, or whatever it takes to get there. And then if you don't make it, you don't make it. But you at least tried. And there's plenty of people on their deathbeds that are like, yeah, I wish I would have tried harder in school, or this or that. And so before you get to your deathbed, make sure you achieve these goals, and not just like, oh, yeah, I'm 70, 80, 90 years old, and crap, where did my life go? So here's a list of some of my goals. Some of these are not very specific, but these are just kind of a reminder to me. And as you can see, I've completed some of them. So the first one is finish my pilot's license. I started this thing in, July 1998. I think most of you were born in 1998. But I have yet to complete this thing. I've soloed an airplane. I've got so far, yet it's not quite there yet. So it's on my to-do list as number 1, actually. Get my motorcycle license. That was a big goal of mine. Got that in 2007. No big deal. As you can see, I ride every day. This is another one. Number 3. I met a guy at a bar in Blacksburg when I was going to Virginia Tech, and he was telling me about this amazing kayak trip where his parents dropped him off at the north of the the Missouri River. And he had a satellite phone, a couple of credit cards, very small supplies, a tent, and that was basically it. And what he did was he kayaked down the river, and he would stop along the way in these little towns and everything. And then, of course, he would kayak, and then he would stop along the river and camp and cook his food and everything. And that was just such a cool story to tell. I wanted to do that. He actually went down the Missouri River. So put that on my list. And this is not a bucket list, because I plan on completing this list and then creating more. So when I first started, I think I only had 5 or 6 items, and then the list grew. So learn to scuba dive. That was another one, and I've done that. Ride a motorcycle across Europe. So obviously I need to get my motorcycle license first, and then I want to do that. And the reason why these are in red, by the way, is because I'm not currently working on these. These are just kind of lofty dreams that I have now. Learn to surf. I'm not really looking, like, where can I go surfing? I'm not planning a trip to California or Hawaii and booking an instructor to teach me. These are going to be one of those things that, maybe I go to Hawaii and I say, what do you want to do? I was like, well, I'm going to go learn to surf. This is something I want to do. And I'm passionate about it, but there's so many other things on my list that I want to achieve. Pay off student loan debt. This was actually a big one that I recommend all you do, obviously, but we're going to actually talk a little bit more about this later. Talking a little bit about money and finances a little bit more. Become a scuba dive master. So obviously I added this one after learning to scuba dive because I didn't even know what a scuba or a dive master was before learning to scuba dive. But this is basically the first professional level of scuba diving that you can obtain. A friend of mine actually got his scuba instructor's certification in the mail today, and that was really cool because he started way after me, but that was something I wanted to do as well. Not on the list, but I did achieve this one. The next one was really, really personal to me. It's dive the U.S. Coast Guard cutter Bibb, B-I-B-B. It's a U.S. Secretary of State for the United States way back in the day. This was actually my grandfather's Coast Guard cutter when he was in World War II. So this is now sunk off the Florida Keys as an artificial reef. And it's just sitting there 130 feet below the surface. And I was like, how cool would it be to visit my grandfather's ship, see where he actually was he was in the Pacific Theater, where he spent his war years. And so I did that. And then I added number 10, enter and explore the USCGC Bibb. So that's the next step. I have to get a little bit more trained to do wreck penetrations and all that fun stuff, technical diving as well, mixing gases, all that fun stuff. But this is green, however, currently not still working on it. I used to have a friend that was a scuba instructor. He used to teach me all this stuff. So that's currently on hold. I haven't updated it. And then finally, dive in the Pacific Ocean. Did that, went to Thailand on a belated honeymoon, and did that. So, these goals don't have to be amazing. They don't have to be like, be an astronaut. I mean, like, dive in the Pacific Ocean. That's a weird goal, right? But I wanted to do that. I never did it, so I wanted to do it, and it was something that I wanted to do, and it is a lot different than the Atlantic and the Caribbean. So some ideas for you for after this class. Say, create 2 published apps this year. You already have one that you're almost completed, right? Do another one. You got the rest of the half of the year, next semester, a lot of you graduating this May, but if you're not, you have the summer, right? So don't put this off. Some of you might be interested in more web-based technologies. Angular 2 is coming out soon. React from Facebook is a big framework. And something specific, like I want to create an Angular 2 app this month. Well, we're at the end of the month, but you get the idea. I want to do it by the end of May. I want to do it by the end of June, that sort of thing. And just do it. And again, it doesn't have to be a full-fledged application that does this and sends out emails and gets push notifications and yada, yada, yada. Just do a list of employees and with a filter. Just something. And then add to your goals list later. Another one, create a low-poly house in Blender in 30 days. So you don't know Blender, you say in 30 days, I just want to create a house with windows, a door, yada, yada, yada. Keep them attainable, be specific. And then just another idea, create a 2D scroller game in Unity this month. So again, you might not know Unity, but take this weekend, go on lynda.com, run through the introduction to Unity, and then for the next 3 weeks, just make a stupid little 2D scroller game. When you guys go in for interviews, and some of you already have jobs, but if you guys go in for interviews, you can at least use these as portfolio pieces. You can say, yeah, I made this and this and this, and it doesn't have to be perfect, right? It doesn't have to be the best. It doesn't have to be polished and sold 1,000 million copies, whatever. It just has to be, you just have to show initiative. You just have to say that I've done this stuff. I took this technology, and this is what I was able to produce in 30 days. And I know it's not great, but I've done it. And that right there, that little statement, I've done it or I've completed this, is more than like 99% of most people are able to say. And it's really amazing to me that people, they can't, they say, oh, I want to be a millionaire. I want to do this. I want to go have a house up in, Aspen or wherever, right? But what are they actually doing to achieve those goals? What are they actually doing to further that initiative? And hey, if it's just creating little crappy apps, which eventually leads to, I don't know, starting your own company and then selling that for hundreds of millions of dollars, well, that's your first step. And I take experience over anything, any day. So you guys are coming out of college, some of you a little bit older, but greatness rarely comes to the young. And you might be, well, what about Mark Zuckerberg or Bill Gates or even Steve Jobs? These guys quit college, and that's awesome, and they did that. But that's the rare case. That's the exception. The more likelihood is you spend a decade doing something specific and becoming really good at that one thing, and then being an expert, and then taking that expertise and doing something grand with it. So just a couple silly examples that I've heard of recently. Da Vinci. We all know the famous Leonardo da Vinci. He didn't really start, he started drawing at a young age, like I've been programming from a young age, but his first break was only at 46. And by first big break, I mean he did the Last Supper. That was one of his most famous pieces, but really his early piece. And he did portraits and landscapes and murals and everything before that. But this was his really the breakout, like, wow, this is an amazing piece. And he accomplished that at 46. And then he spent the next 20 years creating everything else that he's famous for. Some of it before, don't get me wrong, he did a lot of work before. But and then Vincent van Gogh, he painted for 10 years before he sold his first painting. So he started at 27. So if you guys still haven't figured out what you want to do yet with your life, don't worry, you still have plenty of time. And it took him 10 years to actually sell his first painting, and he went through hardship, and he lost teeth, and all this, the starving artist cliche, right? He was pretty much the the creator of that. Well, not really, but that's what people think of when they think of the thing. I got a lot of this from this video essay called "The Struggle for Art." Well, sorry, it's called "The Long Game" Part 3, Painting in the Dark. But it's the struggle for an art in a world obsessed with popularity. So, what I wanted to say about this is, you might build an app and you might put it up on the store, and it doesn't sell anything, or it doesn't even get downloaded by anybody, right? It's 10 this month or something like that, and that's really, really discouraging. You're like, I'm just a terrible app developer. I'm never going to make it because nobody's developing my app. Where on the flip side is you hear all these people, they released an app like Flappy Birds, which is a ridiculous game, by the way, and like completely pointless. But it made $50,000 a day, and that might be encouraging for you. You're like, oh, if this guy can do it, I can do it. But it also might be discouraging for you when you do pour your heart and soul into a game, and then nobody buys it, nobody listens to you, nobody's paying attention. And so the whole idea is not to make developing your app about the end result of getting the downloads, getting the fame, getting the fortune, but rather doing it for yourself because you enjoy doing it. So when I said to make your final something that you're passionate about, something that you want to create, it was mostly to get you motivated and get you inspired to develop something. Rather than me saying, I want you to make an app that lists out all your courses and organizes them and filters them in a database, yada, yada, yada. That's a very boring. Maybe I could have been a lot more creative, but you get the idea. If I chose something for you, like many of your other instructors probably do, right, for your final. I know web dev, you get to choose your own, right, but other classes, OS, here's a specific task, do it. Okay, if that's going to make me pass the class, right? So this course I wanted you to be, mostly passionate about what you were doing. Hopefully you guys chose something you were passionate about. But again, coming out of this class, it's about experience. So you now, hopefully, have something that you can then put up on the App Store. Whether you're really proud about it or not, just put it up on the App Store. Because I don't want you to feel like, if I put it up on there, nobody's going to buy it. Don't feel that way. Just put it up there, because part of putting it up there and failing is part of the experience, right? When an employer or somebody asks you, what do you have? What have you done? What apps do you have out there? You say, well, I completed this app, but I was too shy, or I was too afraid, or I was too whatever to actually put it out there. And they're like, why? Like, who cares? It's $25 for the Android developer's license. It's good for life, basically, and you can publish as many apps as you want. So really, why not? As Adam Sandler says, they're all gonna laugh at you, right? But they're not. Is that joke too old? You guys, okay, sorry. I make a lot of jokes that are old. But anyway, so if there's something you want, if you want to be a better 3D artist, you want to be a mobile developer, you want to be, I don't know, the next Bill Gates, the next Mark Zuckerberg, you need to start early and you need to start often. So this is why I'm telling you this stuff, because I really wish somebody would have told me this when I was your age, graduating college, going out in the real world, that just start something and start it often and keep doing it. And it doesn't have to be grandiose or big. Just do it. Like my 3D stuff, like it's garbage, right? But it's a little bit at a time, and I can see myself getting better, which reinforces that, and it's a feedback loop. It's a positive feedback loop where I just want to do more of it, because I'm getting really good at this. I'm getting better at this. I'm getting, now I understand how this thing that confused the hell out of me 3 months ago, now it's starting to finally take hold. And that only happens after you iterate and reiterate over what you're doing. So for example, Android, iOS tutorials, I still watch intro to Swift, intro to iOS development, intro to Java, intro to Android development, because there's always something there that I maybe didn't experience or understand initially when I first watched it, but now I understand because I've dealt with it. I had those problems. I had those real life problems, and it could be something as arcane as the activity life cycle. You go, why is my app doing this? And then you go and watch an intro video, and then it's like, oh yeah, by the way, when you rotate or when you do this, your activity does that. And you're like, oh, okay. And maybe you have a workaround, but then you watch those intro videos again. So it's always going back to the basics. They always say in like sports, like basketball, football, baseball, that when you go to practice, you don't practice really advanced techniques. You practice passing the ball or shooting the ball, like free throws, right? For basketball, it's always free throws. And it's like, this is boring. Can we do something else? It's like, no, you really have to learn how to do your free throws. Baseball, it's just, batting practice, right? You're not trying to hit home runs. You're not trying to see if you can hit it in the left field or right field or hit a ground ball to the pitcher or wherever. You're batting practice. Just swing the bat, hit the ball. So it's always going back to the basics. And then, of course, just piece of advice, back up. It's really traumatic when you lose something you've worked on for months and months and months. So, yeah. I always have that third point in. When I say start early, start often, it's always followed by back up. All right, so this is not to brag, but this is some of the things I've done in the last 10 years. So I've become a technical director at one of the first companies I worked for. I've owned several companies. I'm now a university instructor, which is cool. I've traveled Europe several times. That's an awesome experience. Been to South America. For those of you who don't know, my wife is from South America, so that's an easy one to do. I've soloed airplanes, as I mentioned. I've scuba dived in tropical places. I've married. I've had kids. These are all great things, and many, many more. Not all of these have been on my list of things to do, right? But this is where I've been in the last 10 years. So think about where you're going to be in the next 10 years, or where you want to be in the next 10 years. Do you want to be a software developer for 10 years? Maybe not. So don't stagnate. Don't be a software developer for 10 years. Do something else. Branch out. Do woodworking. Restore cars. I have a friend that he paints little figurines, little die-cast figurines. Whatever it is, do something that you're passionate about, and then maybe it turns into a job, maybe it turns into a career, or it's just an outlet for whatever you are currently doing. So diversify your offerings. Don't just be that mobile guy if that's what you're going into. Don't just be the HTML guy or the JavaScript guy. I was talking to somebody today about job descriptions or job titles, and it was like, some job titles are so specific, like you're just a front-end developer, right? It's like, well, I don't know. Do you just know JavaScript and HTML and maybe CSS? Or are you more of a programmer? Are you more of an architect? Are you a software engineer? Are you an engineer? I mean, your degree says engineer on it, so make that worth something. Don't just become a front-end developer or front-end engineer or whatever they're going to be called. Because anybody can learn Android development. Anybody can go on YouTube or wherever, get a book and start typing code on a screen and hitting compile. But the good ones, they really know how to learn. They know how to further their education. They know how to get specific and deep into these topics. They're always learning. And more importantly, they're always doing and creating. I mean, you can... I used to do this. I used to read books. I used to go through the book and just read it and be like, all right, now I'm an iOS developer. Or I'd read a JavaScript book and okay, now I know JavaScript. But until you actually sit down and start doing that, you realize quickly how much you don't know. And it's very similar to teaching this class as well. When I first started teaching, I was like, wow, there's a lot that I really don't know. Or I was saying things that I didn't quite know why they were true. So I would say something and I'd be like, this is true and this is the way it works, but I don't know why it works that way. And then I'd go back and actually figure it out. And, okay, that's really interesting. Or, I would be talking to somebody and, doing it in a specific way, and then somebody would say, oh, you should use this library. You should, use this thing that I just found out about while working on my own project. And be like, that's awesome. And so doing and creating, I mean, it doesn't matter what it is. It's just getting out there and doing it. Don't sit in front of your TV or in front of YouTube these days and just watch videos and, silly videos, prank videos, or Vine compilations, or I got a kick on a little bit on crash compilations, car crashes. And I don't know why that's fascinating, but maybe that says something about how crazy I am, but there's something interesting about the way that cars crash into each other, and maybe it's stupid drivers. And I'm like, wow, that guy, if he hadn't been speeding, he wouldn't have wrecked his BMW or his Porsche or his Ferrari, that sort of thing. It's like, oh, because it's kind of funny and it's kind of sad, and hopefully nobody dies in those videos, but you get my idea. It's a complete waste of my time. And you don't always have to be learning and watching stuff, but continually questioning yourself, is what I'm doing right now really furthering what I'm trying to achieve in life, or is it just literally wasting my life? So that's a question for you guys. So read. Here's a suggestion. Read. I know with the internet and everything, a lot of people have very short attention spans, but these are probably if you come out of this class with anything, read these two resources. I promise they'll change your life, especially as you go forward in your careers and everything like that. Mr. Money Mustache, one of my favorite software engineers, former software engineer, retired at the age of 30. So he will help you save you from your early mistakes. So I made all these mistakes. I bought a condo in Blacksburg. I had a job offer, didn't have a job, bought a condo, no money down, bought it at the height of the housing market, student loan debt that I kept around like it was a pet, that sort of thing. He goes through all these things and why you should not do that. I was like, oh, I wish I would have found you 10 years ago. But I've been reading him for the last, I think, 3 years, and it's totally changed my view on consumption, on money, on health. It's really fascinating. And you don't have to be exactly like him. Like it's this vegetarian thing where you don't have to become 100% vegetarian, 100% vegan. Maybe just do it once a day, right? Or once a meal. You don't have to go 100%. But take some of his advice at least. instead of ordering that hamburger, get a salad. Like it's not the end of the world that you get something that doesn't have meat in it. Just cut down a little bit because meat's terrible for the environment. Sometimes it's terrible for you. And so I'm not a vegetarian. I eat plenty of meat, but again, you don't have to be 100% either way. It's like Republicans and Democrats. You don't have to be 100%, right? But today's society, it seems to be a very, bipolar existence. It's just you're either one or the other, or sometimes, I don't know. Whatever happened to being middle of the road, right? So that's my philosophy. But check it out. It's a blog. It's a nice read. There's an introductory article of how he did it, where he's going, and everything. Read that. At least read that introductory, how he did it. And then finally, for the two books or the two resources you need to read, A Random Walk Down Wall Street. So I mentioned this in the beginning of the semester, but this will show you that anyone can invest. You don't have to hire an investment planner or a financial planner or hire a big stockbroker to manage your funds, because for the most part, those guys are criminals. They'll try to make it so that they seem like they're needed, like, oh yeah, you guys don't understand this, so let me take care of your money for you. Read this book. It basically says that monkeys throwing darts against a newspaper full of stocks can pick stocks better than almost all financial planners, stockbrokers, those guys that pick stocks, that think they can pick the next Apple or Microsoft or whatever. They can't, because nobody knows. If anybody knew, they would be doing it. And I can count on one hand the amount of people that can actually do that. One is Peter Lynch. He was the fund manager for the Magellan Fund, which is consistently beat the market average. It got something like a return of 10% year after year after year, which is actually unheard of. Warren Buffett, and I think there's one other guy. I can't, but honestly, those are the only people that consistently pick stocks or pick funds that beat the market average. And this book explains why. And so it's a pretty amazing book. There's not a whole lot of math in it. It is kind of dry, but see if you can get through it, because if you do, it'll totally change your life in terms of money. These two things will actually. And outlook in life and how you manage projects in your life. And so this is one of my favorite quotes that kind of has to relate to that. You are the same today that you'll be in 5 years, except for two things: the people that you meet and the books that you read. So think about that for a second. In 10 years or 5 years or whatever, you're going to be the same you, but what makes you different? What makes me different now than it did 10 years ago? Well, honestly, it was the people that I met, the influences that I had in my life, and the things that I read, the books that I read, the tutorials that I read. Maybe it's online tutorial, YouTube videos or whatever, but it's still the same thing. You become a mobile developer, and that takes your career down this path, right? And these are the people that you met, hopefully myself, that you would include in that, and then the books that you've read that are related to that. Some of you will go on to become mobile developers. I hear back from students all the time, yeah, thanks for your class. I started with this company, now I'm doing all their mobile stuff. They want an iOS app, so I'm learning that. Or some of you have actually taken both my courses. So that's really cool to hear. So if you guys end up doing that, let me know. Well, whatever you end up doing, let me know, because it is always interesting for me to see where you guys end up. Another book I recommend for your nice long summer reading list that I'm giving you, How to Win Friends and Influence People. I forget the guy's first name. It's Carnegie, if you want to look this up. This book was published back in early 1900s. I think the last edition was like 1950 something, 55, 52, I want to say. And so you can actually get this book for free from digitally. You can get it from the library for free. But this is one of the best books that I've read for talking and relating to people. So a couple lists of things that you'll get out of this book. You'll get out of a mental rut: think new thoughts, acquire new visions, discover new ambitions. So maybe this is what we're talking about here in class, new mobile app that you want to build. But also in your career, make friends quickly and easily. And this is not some scheme wave your hands over this person, put them under a magical spell, or do an Obi-Wan, these are not the droids you're looking for, or you will be my friend, kind of weird, manipulative things. These are just like nice things that you do for people that make them want to be your friend. And it sounds like common sense, but honestly, you read through and you're like, that's a good idea. Or you say, yeah, I kind of been doing that, but maybe not to the extent that this book makes it out to be, as important as it is. Increase your popularity. Some of us don't really want to become popular. That kind of annoys us, right? But maybe popular within your own circle. Maybe the close group of friends that you do have, you can become more popular with them. Win people to your way of thinking. So this article, this chapter that this is talking about, this is more of making arguments. So instead of saying, my politician's better than your politician, or your politician's an asshole because of some silly reason, right? It's more like how to make your point, how to argue your point, your way of thinking. Have you thought about this? It's good. Read it. The next one: increase your influence, your prestige, your ability to get things done. This is really good if you want to go into management or you're managing other people. Handle complaints, avoid arguments, keep your human contacts smooth and pleasant. So maybe you're managing people, or maybe you have a problem yourself. Arguments never get you anywhere. Debate does, but arguments don't. So this also pertains to your personal relationships as well. Making sure that the other person is heard, for example, not just saying the same thing over and over again, but trying to understand the other person and the other person's point of view. So again, a really great book. The next one: become a better speaker. I don't know if I'm a good speaker or not, but I did read this book and I tried to use some of those points in there, and they are good points, and so hopefully that does come across. But anyway, arouse enthusiasm among your associates. So if you're trying to get somebody to you want to implement a new technology at work, right? You say, hey, you're not using Git. I mean, that's just ridiculous. You guys are idiots. That's probably the bad way of going through it, right? But instead saying, you should try out this new technology because it'll allow us to, save money and save time, and all those frustrations that we had when Joe decided to delete the whole entire project, and then we had to go back to some backup that was like 20 days old or something like that. Git handles all that, and then we could do this and that sort of thing. So again, really great book. Another book. Sorry, I think this is the last book that I'm going to throw you. But these are out of all the books I've read in the last whatever, these are probably the ones that always pop up either in conversations or in my mind about where things are going and how they just success in general. This one's called Rich Dad Poor Dad. This is by an author called Robert Kiyosaki, and he shares a story about two dads. One is his real father, and he was a head of public school in Hawaii. You'd think that's kind of successful, right? But he refers to him as his poor dad. And then his other father is his best friend's father, and this is the man who became his mentor and his rich dad. And so he compares and contrasts these two fathers that he had growing up, where his poor dad, for example, would say, no, we can't afford that, we're not going to buy that, we can't afford it. Where his rich dad said, we never say that, we never say we can't afford it. And he used this other term, and it escapes me at the moment. But it was just the mentality that this guy had, and it really puts into perspective. And I don't want to be too blunt about this, but how poor people think and how rich people think, if that makes sense. So, for example, rich people are always looking at things as investments. They're always like, okay, I have this $100 to spend. Do I buy, the latest version of whatever game is out there, or do I invest it in either my education or a stock or a bond or my house by paying off debt or something like that? They're always looking at money as an investment. And then he goes through a whole bunch of comparisons and contrastions for those types of things. And it's really, really interesting. And then finally, the one point out of his book that I want to segue into is tax laws favor business owners. So think about it. Who are the people that can afford to lobby Congress? Right? It's the rich people. It's the people that own the businesses. Google, when they want something done, they pay millions of dollars to have people go down to D.C. and say, make this law, change this policy, do whatever. And poor people, we just say, well, it'd be nice if that law was changed. And so it's skewed heavily toward the rich. And I don't want to get into politics or anything like that. It's a fact that if you have a lot of money, there are a lot of tax laws that favor you, and that's the truth. So what do? Instead of complaining about it, start your own company. So this is something I've harped on from the beginning of the semester. You get to choose which projects you work on. You get to decide who you work with. You take all the responsibility, but you also receive all the rewards. And then, my favorite, you get to pick which 16 hours of the day that you get to work. That's the greatest thing. But that's my choice to work that much. If I only want to work 2 hours a day, then I can. There's a great book. Sorry to throw another one at you. I didn't put this in the list, but The 4-Hour Workweek. Guy comes up with an idea that you can apply to almost any kind of business. He works 4 hours a week, and then he just does whatever he wants for the rest of the time. And that might sound silly, like, yeah, I'm going to write whatever for 4 hours and then do this. It's mostly like, okay, I'm going to start a business, and then I'm going to work toward having other people run the business for me. And then I'm going to spend 4 hours a week managing those people and just making things run smoothly and not being the bottleneck that slows everybody else down. So you might see that from your own employer, where your own employer is trying to micromanage things because maybe you're having a rough patch in the business, and he's like, no, you have to do this and this and this, and where are you going to be next hour? I want to know where you're going to be. And you're like, dude, just let me work. I'm the expert. And most business owners are not experts, right? Like, think of your next boss, next time you get hired, or maybe if you're currently working for somebody. Are they actually an expert in what you do? Like what you do as like a software engineer or whatever. And I'm not trying to badmouth bosses, but bosses are good for running companies, not executing projects, right? So websites, for example. You might be developing a website for a client, and your boss might have gotten that client, might have gotten that account, made the deal, got the money, everything like that. And that's what he or she is good at. But you're the one that's good at HTML, JavaScript, CSS, if you're making websites. And so, yeah, the boss should really stay out of your way and not say, oh, hey, I learned about this new technology that you should use. And you're like, no. And so this is that continuous learning, always knowing what the greatest and best things are, or the best tools are, so that you can implement in your projects and not have to rely upon some guy that read a blog post somewhere that says, oh, we should be doing this, and hey, I hear this great thing called Silverlight is going to compete with Flash, and it's going to kill Flash, and it's going to be the next big thing. And that's a true story. It's like, no, we're not using Silverlight, because guess what? It's going to be dead in 10 years, mark my words, and guess what? It's dead. So, but having known that all the other technologies out there, I knew that was going to be a bad choice. So, getting a little bit more into money and investing, again, something that I want you guys to really think hard about, because, again, this is something that I wish somebody would have told me, because I got a late start on this, and I'm kind of kicking myself for now. But take $10,000. I know you don't have $10,000 sitting in the bank, but it's just a hypothetical. At 7%, if you invested that at 7% for 10 years, that'll gain you almost $20,000, and that's compounded yearly. I was too lazy to compound it monthly, but actually that turns out to be almost $20,000. And then every 10.3 years at 7%, you'll double your money. So if you put in $10,000 and then don't touch it for 10 years, if you invest that at 7%, which is what the market average is, by the way, you'll double your money. Put in $100,000, you make $200,000. Put in $1 million, you make $2 million. And that's just assuming that you never touch that money again. So maybe something more realistic, you put in $1,000. Well, then after 10 years, you make $2,000. Is that worth it? Probably not. So we have to continuously invest. But you can figure this out. It's called the Rule of 72, if you've never heard of this. You take the percentage that you're going to invest in, divide it into 72, and that'll give you the number of years that it'll double. So for example, if you invest in 10%, take 72 divided by 10, and that'll be 7.2 years. So if you can find an investment at 10%, you'll double your money in 7.2 years. That's pretty cool, right? Like, double your money. Whatever you put in, it doubles in 7.2 years. Now, you might be thinking, where can I find an investment for 10%? My bank account barely gives me 1%. I'll get to that in a second. Last point, start with $10,000, retire a millionaire. This is an article that shows you how to do that. And essentially, if you start at age 25, I know some of you are not there yet, so maybe you have a few years, or maybe you're past that, sorry. I was when I started. Now I'm playing catch up. Take $10,000, and I think the article says something about invest $320 or $302. There's a 3 and a 2 in there somewhere. Let's just say $300 a month, which is pretty doable, right? It's basically a cheap car payment every month. By the age of 65, you'll be a millionaire. You'll retire with $1 million. And that's not hard to do, right? $300 car payment. Right. So you can read that article if you're interested in that. So how do we get to that 10%? So this is an actual account that I have. There's no numbers on it, but there are percentages on it. My current investment in this platform, it's the Lending Club, by the way, if you guys are interested, is yielding me almost 13% interest on this. And actually, I'm kind of in the high end. So this blue dot that you might not be able to see in the back, that's my account. So I'm top of the tier there, but there's just some rules that I have in investing in these different notes, and you can learn more about it from their website and how to do all this. But basically, there are some criteria that I don't invest in. These are just loans to people like you and I. They give a very short credit history, like what their credit score is, how much money they have in credit card debt, what they're trying to buy for it, what their income is, a couple things like that. And so, for example, I don't lend to anybody in California. Is anybody from California here? You don't pay your debts. It's statistics. You don't pay your debts. Sorry, so I don't give money to people in California. And so I just go by pure statistics and income versus how much money they're trying to borrow, that sort of thing. So I can get 13% out of this investment vehicle. This is not my main investment vehicle. Yeah, it's 13%. Say, throw all my money in there, right? But you might not be at the top tier here. And if anybody wants to get into this, I will share all of my filters and everything. It's not that complicated, as I mentioned. I think I've weeded out Californians, sorry, Floridians, for obvious reasons. And there's a couple other filters in there, but also people that are, if you make, let's say, $5,000 a month, but your payment on this loan is $600 a month, I won't lend to you. It's about a 10% monthly income to monthly payment ratio. And there's a couple other things like that. And so you can see the results on that, 13%. And if you're probably more like average, that's about 9%, like if you were to be the average, which is great. Sometimes I want to be average. The average is 9%. And so the rule of 72, if 8% divided into 72, that's 9 years, right? Yeah, I think so. 9 years, you'll double your money. So I'll double my money in 5.5 years. But this is something, again, I started very, very small. I started every day, very small chunks, like just check it, see what's going on. If a loan went bad, I just saw why that was. So very small steps toward getting this. Oh, I do have one more book. I'm sorry. I like to read. I'm sorry. I can't help it. The Millionaire Next Door. So maybe your goal is to be a millionaire, but this millionaire lifestyle of I'm going to have private jets and fancy cars and everything. This book is really cool because these authors went out to find and interview millionaires, and what they actually ended up having, they had a really hard time finding people that own mansions and fancy cars whose net worth was actually in the millions of dollars. So Donald Trump is famous for saying he's millions of dollars in debt. So he's like one of the, I don't know if he's one of the richest, but he is, you would say, one of the richest people. But he's actually he has a ton of debt. And he's famous for saying, I guess he was walking with his daughter, and he pointed to a homeless guy on the street, and said, that guy's net worth is higher than mine because he was in so much financial debt. He was making a lot of money, but the debt that he had, his net worth, was actually below zero or below whatever that guy had, right? And so that's what these authors found was these people living in these fancy houses, driving these fancy cars, their net worth was actually not $1 million. And so they're like, what the heck? Where are all these millionaires? And what they actually found was the real millionaires, they only live in $300,000 houses. They own their own businesses, small businesses. Maybe it's a bakery, maybe it's a restaurant. They're a franchisee for McDonald's or KFC or you pick it. And they drive old cars, domestic cars. Not that I don't know if that matters, but whether it's a foreign car like a Toyota or a Chevy or Ford. But the fact that they don't buy new cars every year, the fact that they maybe just keep the car around for 10 years. And so Warren Buffett is famous for driving a 10-year-old car, living in a $300,000 house. That's a true story. He doesn't live in fancy stuff, and guess what? He is one of the richest people in the world. So this book will kind of put this into perspective of, after reading this book, you're driving down the street, you see somebody in a Ferrari or a BMW or whatever, and you're like, I feel bad for that person because they're poor. And I swear to God, I'm not trying to make myself feel better, but it's like, you go, that guy's probably poor. And honestly, he probably is. Or she, whatever. It's people they make a lot of money, but their real net worth is almost zero, if not. And so they're actually finding these people's net worth were maybe $100,000. Yeah, their incomes were $250,000, $500,000, but they were just spending it all. So don't spend all your money.
Sorry to interrupt you. Honestly, yesterday, in the mall, I was behind it, and I was like, that's a true bump sticker. One of those window decals in the back on the window, and it's this big jacked up truck with these big little tires, and So I looked at the decal. Usually you see, like my dad ran into that, or see that,
Calvin, yeah. Yeah.
And then this guy had the biggest financial mistake ever. And he driving this really cool truck. And I was like, man, that's true.
Yeah. Yeah. You know how much those.
Acknowledging that was true is even cooler. I was like, hey, you learned your lesson.
Yeah, sort of.
$750 a month.
Probably, yeah. The average car payment per month, I think, is $660 some. Yeah. So don't do that. Read Mr. Money Mustache. He talks about that. Don't buy fancy cars that will make you poor. Because I will literally, I guess they don't have poorhouses anymore. As my mother used to say, I'll put you in the poorhouse. Yeah, like those trucks. You look at the price tags, $40,000, $50,000 for these big trucks that you drive to your construction job. And no disrespect to construction people. My dad is one, but Jesus, I know you don't make enough money to afford that because I can't afford that. So, yeah, it blows my mind. If I'm gonna spend $80,000, it's gonna be on something nice, not a truck. Sorry, I mean some people like their trucks. Or I'm gonna buy several cars. I'll probably buy a dirt bike. I already have a motorcycle, small car, big car. I mean, think about how much money you could buy, or how many things you could buy with that much money. Blows my mind. People wasting. Yeah. Well, if you want to be a millionaire, keep those cars and drive them into the ground. Because Dave Ramsey says if you keep your car instead of trading it every year, and after you paid it off, I paid off my car, and this is the greatest thing ever because you take that car payment, $300. I think ours was $303. $303 a month, even after you pay it off. Actually, I was paying double on that, but you pay it off, and then you take the $300 and you continue to pay off the car, but you put it into an investment or savings account instead. And that article that I mentioned about how to take $10,000 and turn it into $1 million, that's what that talks about. It's just $300. So yeah, these car payments, houses and car payments, they'll make you poor. So you're like, okay, you sold me on the whole idea of investing, right? What do I invest in? I can't pick stocks, whatever. Invest in this one. If there's nothing else, if you don't want to learn about investing, just invest in this one. It's linked to. You can even click on it after I post the notes. This is the Vanguard Total Stock Market Index. So we talk about the index as the stock market. It's the market average by definition. Why do I choose this one over, Morgan Stanley or whatever big investment fund thing that you want to throw out there? Why Vanguard? Because Vanguard is low cost. They don't have a lot of people that are managing the fund that say, oh yeah, buy this, sell that, buy this. And so by not paying somebody to do that, it keeps the costs low. They don't get these big bonuses and everything. You can read up on Vanguard and the history of Vanguard, but low cost. So instead of spending 2% or 1%, which is typical of your mutual fund, so you had $100,000, every year they take out $1,000, $2,000, no matter what the stock did, no matter what the mutual fund did. These people are supposed to be there to manage it and to make money. Well, if they fail at their job, they still get paid. So this one is they just invest in the stock market. Whatever the stock is, it's by market cap, so it's heavy in Apple because Apple's one of the, it is the largest company in the world by market cap, and so it's very heavy Apple, it's very heavy Google or Alphabet. So all these big stocks that you might want to invest in, this actually invests in it for you. And you can see what it's done over the last 10 years. So taking that $10,000 hypothetical, investing it back in 2006, which is around when I graduated, well, it went up. And then it crashed, and you're like, oh, well, if I invested $10,000, it would be almost worth half of that, and that sucks. Why would I ever do that? Well, because the years after that, it grows. And not only that, but the average, even though it crashed, was still 7%. So you'll have your ups and downs, but over the long term, over 10 years, which is a fairly short amount of time, it's a better part of a lifetime, but it is a short amount of time, it does 7%. And so you'd almost have $20,000 in there, and so that's that 7% that I was talking about. And this is just the stock market. And I'll tell you what, there's no other mutual fund that will do better than this over the long term. You might have some that do better 1 year, but over a long term, this will always be better than that because it's the market average, and everybody's trying to beat the market average. And to beat the market average, you have to know more than the other people trying to beat the market average, and that never happens because of the rule of large numbers, right? And again, there's people I can count on one hand that can actually do that successfully year over year. So, okay, maybe I don't have enough money to invest. The limit on that was about $3,000. So hopefully you get some money in graduation, or maybe you're saving money from now until graduation through $3,000. But I don't have $3,000, so I can't open that account yet. What do? Go find a high yield savings account, about 1%. This link will bring you to bankrate.com, I think. It lists out all the banks and their rates and that sort of thing. So it's a great tool to compare. I personally have an ally.com account. They give me a debit card. It's all electronic. It's awesome. The yield is about 1% on the savings account and then 0.1 on the checking account. So I just move money from my checking account if it gets too big. Well, actually, I use that checking account for groceries, and that's my budget for groceries. But okay, so things that I've invested in personally, a little bit of history and some background. I've invested in companies. My second company, the one I run now, is my first and most successful and everything. But I tried to start another company with a friend, invested $10,000, did some software for it, and basically, poof, up in the air, gone. That sucks because I could have invested that money in something a little bit less risky. So maybe starting your own company is not your thing, but maybe it is. Maybe you just want to do it as a side business. I also gained invaluable knowledge from that. One, I learned to not work with other people because other people have different priorities and different expertise and different motivations in life. I mean, honestly, somebody might have a kid or somebody might decide to go get a full-time job, and then you're like, well, what do we do with a company? I mean, I've been pouring my heart and soul into it. So don't start a company with a friend, trust me. It's like roommates, right? Like roommates from high school, you become roommates in college, and it doesn't quite work out, right? You hear those stories. Index fund. So that's my current vehicle of investment besides the lending club. Tesla. I've invested in Tesla, not the car, the company. So I bought Tesla stock. It's done awesome, but I don't recommend buying single stock. I was just looking at Tesla going, this is the coolest company ever. I'm going to buy stock. And then 2 years, that was 2 years ago, I think? 3? It was probably closer to 3 years. A other people found out how cool Tesla is, and now it's a household name. But I invested early in it, and I've made a ton of money for what I've invested in. It's awesome. But that was something that I had an expertise in. I had, technology, right? And all you share that same expertise. And I saw, I was like, why, this is an awesome company. It's going places. The guy that started it used to run PayPal and did this and this. I watched the documentary and I was like, I got to invest in this guy. And that's the only single stock that I own, honestly. I've been tempted to sell it because I've made all the money, but I'm like, I don't know. It's like investing in Microsoft back in 1979 or 1980. It's like, yeah, you could sell like in 1985, but if you held on to it, I don't know. So I've also invested in cows. True story. I own some cows in South America. I've never seen them. I've never seen the land that they're on, but I own a few cows as part of my wife's family down there. Invested, I don't know how much, like $2,000. So I own $2,000 worth of cows. I don't know how many cows that buys me, and then the most important thing out of all this list is myself, education and health. Money's no good if you're dead, right? So finally, what you guys need to do after this class, put yourself out there. And I mean like a comfort zone type thing. Teach. I know some of you weren't very comfortable coming up here and speaking about your application. But do it. Do it more often, because I was in your same shoes. I was exactly like you guys. And I am not the best public speaker or teacher. I know that for sure. But trust me, I'm a lot better than I was 3 years ago when I started teaching this class. Give a talk. Start small. For your company, for example, get a little presentation on something that you're working on. If you've been working on Swagger for your APIs, give a little talk about it. Put on a presentation. Volunteer. Volunteer is one of the coolest things I've ever done. I used to go to elementary schools, 6th grade, inner cities, regular ones, not regular ones, they're all regular, right? But I guess I should say more prestigious ones, more richer places. And teach kids HTML and JavaScript, and that was really cool. We built a lab for an inner city daycare. These people, they didn't have a place to go after school, and so this was a free thing for them. And we pulled all these old computers together, got donations from Microsoft, installed Word, and taught them Word, PowerPoint, and just basic computer skills. And it was awesome. And yeah, I didn't get paid for it, but who cares, right? It's the whole experience. Go to a conference. I highly recommend conferences. I used to go to WWDC, Worldwide Developers Conference for Apple. Coolest thing ever. You meet so many cool people, or even if you don't meet people, you see people that are just so far above you. You're like, I want to be that guy. And then just another idea: travel Europe, but do it alone. You'll really find that you really get out of your comfort zone. You don't have somebody to tell you what to do or anything like that. So put yourself out there, not only just more to push your comfort zone. And the more you push your comfort zone beyond its boundaries, the larger your comfort zone becomes. And so I laugh when people get really nervous doing talks and everything, because it's like, I remember when I was nervous doing talks, but I don't get nervous anymore. It's just kind of like stage acting. You just do it enough and you don't care. And I have never pictured you guys in your underwear, don't worry. I think that would freeze me up more than anything, but just doing things will get you better at it. Applications, Android applications, just doing it, pushing your boundaries. Say, I'm not really comfortable making this large application, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to push that boundary. Okay, so finally, if you kind of noticed, this class wasn't really about Android development. It was mostly about creating and executing your dreams that you come up with. So you have an idea for an app. Now you can do it, or you at least know how to go about doing it. And so this is really me enabling you to create your own and achieving your own dreams. So this was my last lecture to you guys, and I appreciate you guys coming out every night and being a part of this. And I really want to see where you guys go off and where you get jobs, or things that came up, like, hey, I learned this thing in this class and this really helped me here. Let me know. But this is my last lecture. This is my favorite last lecture. This really affected me back when this was first shot. This is Randy Pausch's last lecture. Has anybody seen this one before? Okay, this is over 10 years old now, but it's about achieving your childhood dreams. I won't I will say this is probably the best thing you'll ever watch in the next decade. Honestly, go watch it. I won't say anything more about it. Go download the notes or just Google the last lecture. It'll come up as the first result. So do that. Do everything in these notes, but even if you do 1% of it, that still will fulfill my goal of this class. So again, guys, thank you, and goodbye, and good luck. I'll see you hopefully around.
Thank you.
Thank you.